You're thinking of making a move to New Jersey suburbs and you're not sure if it's going to be a good fit for you or not? Well, I'm going to give you 10 reasons why you probably shouldn't move to New Jersey. And if you agree with these reasons, well, then you might want to reconsider it. But look, this is a local perspective. I've been here for 30 plus years, so I'm giving the honest truth here. And a matter of fact, the first one I'm going to start out with is extremely controversial, and I'm going to be tossing in a lot of other things like power outages, because they're a lot different in New Jersey, believe it or not. And then we're to talk about the weather, condos, a lot going on in this one. Make sure you stick around to the end. You don't want to miss any of them, because if you do, well, then you're gonna learn the hard way possibly. But let's try and avoid that for you. So starting this thing off, like I said, I'm gonna be a little controversial here, and I will say New Jersey had some wild and crazy COVID laws. I think one of the craziest was possibly they closed restaurants, but because restaurants had to function, their businesses, they allowed them to function outside. So people moved their tables outside, but then it got cold, so they allowed them to put up a tent. And then it got really cold, so they had to put heaters into the tent, close the doors to the tent. So essentially we were inside a tent, but outside. My thought was just, why don't you just reopen the restaurant? I don't know, that was my take. Tell me if I'm crazy, cop a comment below if I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm going over the line, but hey, like I said, it was a little controversial on this first one. Going to the schools, you know, they literally sent the kids home where the parents had to essentially watch them. Now look, at the time, I had very young kids, kindergarten and younger, so we were literally kind of watching them on Zoom all day while trying to work and do our business. So that was happening for a couple months, and then they go back to school and, you know, they're wearing the masks and everything like that. But then they go to the cafeteria where they don't have to wear the mask because you're eating. People didn't really get sick, but you know, whatever, it happens. So we had a lot of wacky COVID laws, and I'll say one of the wackiest ones was the state park ban that happened for a while. I live right next to a state park and no one could go to it because, you know, those are the laws. Even though you're outdoors and separation, you distance from people, but you couldn't go to state parks, and they had that ban for a while. So I'll say New Jersey kind of was very wacky with the laws and made it really tough for us. So if there ever was a COVID again or something similar, you want to be prepared that this state is gonna be doing things a little bit silly, and yeah, it might not be the place for you, but let's hope this doesn't happen again. All right, moving along here. Traffic. Traffic is wild in New Jersey. I mean, I could talk about this forever, from times of the day to times of the week. I would say anything from like 6 to 9 p.m. If you're going towards NYC eastbound, or 6 to 9 a.m., it's tough. You know, there's a lot of traffic happening. So you want to pay attention to that. Public transportation, you know, it's very good, but at the same time, it doesn't always work or function on the highest level. Good example of that is, actually, here's a little bonus tip, is the train system. It's good, but on very hot days, it actually can shut down. So you want to be aware of that, where it can get delays, where if it's in the 90s and above, the trains don't move as efficiently. So that causes more traffic. A big one is going to be Fridays. I always say Fridays is tough, even if it's not the summertime. The reason I say summertime is because Fridays is almost, you want to avoid traveling east and south, because everyone's going to the shore from, let's say, May to September. It's a very busy day going for those 3-day weekends. But then people like just taking off earlier in the city on Friday, so traffic patterns can get a little wild. Leaving the city, you know, typically if it's 2 to 5 p.m., it's a really tough window. You're gonna be in bumper to bumper traffic. But if you're leaving at noontime or maybe even 11 a.m. on a Friday, you're still gonna hit a lot of the traffic. So traffic patterns are pretty wild in New Jersey. So you can stay up to date on videos and everything that's happening about New Jersey. I'm gonna put a lot of content out, diving deep with town tours, everything vlogs. Make sure you click subscribe and hit the bell, because then you can get that notification so you can be the first to know about future videos when they come out. All right, let's keep going about New Jersey suburbs and some of the things you're gonna wanna avoid here. So road conditions, I mean, look, that's gonna go hand in hand with traffic a little bit, but we get crazy weather, hot and cold. What does that do? It creates potholes. So you see a lot of these potholes on the road where not only do they damage your car, but they slow things down. A matter of fact, they're actually doing pothole repairs today on the highway, and that just creates random traffic in the middle of the day, 12 o'clock, and all of a sudden they're fixing potholes. So it turns what a 10-minute drive on the highway into a 20 or 30-minute bumper to bumper traffic, because they got people fixing the road so we don't pop a tire or mess up your car. So road conditions can be really tough. A lot of that has to do with the weather though, the potholes. And then diving a little bit deeper, just the roads in general, which I'll be talking about a little bit deeper detail, especially if you're living in a smaller town or a lake town. So you're gonna wanna stick around because it makes a huge difference when you're living in those areas. So yes, be aware of the road conditions, and there's a lot of people in this state. We're very, very populated, so there's a lot of cars on the roads, hence the higher cost of living. Yes, I'll be talking about that too in a little bit. Okay, power outages. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this one's different. Something that's not really talked about that much is the power outage. Now look, if you're living in the city, everything is run with electric going to the buildings underground. If you're living in the Jersey City or the more built up areas, they have the electric under the ground. Not that big of a deal. But when you get out to the suburbs, the power lines are what hold up the electric. So you have essentially a telephone pole, and then you got the power going through. So what happens during a storm, a tree will come down and bam, knock the line over, and yeah, all of a sudden you don't have power until the electric company comes out and fixes it. So something that you really need to know, especially the further west you go, where you see the power is on poles going property to property, it just takes one windy storm, maybe an ice storm, snowstorm, and that will take possibly the power line down, and you could be without power. When you get to some of the more rural towns, having a generator is super crucial. You're gonna wanna have one of those. We are getting one actually right now because the town we live in, our power goes out pretty frequently, a couple times a year, and it could be for over a day. So we wanted to get that generator to make sure we don't lose the food and everything like that. I got really good. We're gonna get a Generac installed. I'm super excited for it. So that's gonna be huge, so I can make more videos like this, and so I don't miss your phone calls when you reach out, because I get phone calls, texts, emails every single day. That is my direct number. It doesn't make a difference if it's a Sunday morning, a Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, it doesn't make a difference. Shoot me a text. I'm here to answer your questions and be a guide for you to make buying, selling, and investing in Northern New Jersey a breeze and smooth. But you're gonna watch out for these power outages because yeah, if you're out in the suburbs, you might get them a little bit more because the power lines, it's an older concept. Now when you have newer construction, which I'll be diving into a little bit, I'm gonna talk about the newer construction, which you don't have the power outages as much. Okay, snow conditions. All right, so yeah, that's super crucial here. You get a lot of snow. We do a decent amount of snow. What's crazy about us is our state's kind of cut in a way where the snow belt goes straight through the top northwestern part of the state. So if you're closer to the city, you don't get as much snow. If you're south, you don't get as much snow. But if you're in Morris County, Hunterdon County, Sussex County, Warren County, you're in the snow belt. So you're gonna get hit with snow. There'll be times where I'm getting hit with snow in Morris County, and I know people in Essex County, Hudson County, or the New York City are just getting rain. That's very common, or they get very small accumulations. It's very rare for NYC to get more snow than Western New Jersey. Most of the time we get hit. Something you want to be aware of if you're moving down south, when they do get hit with snow, it's kind of like a shock. It's like, what do we do? How do we handle this? I will say that we are experienced in the northwestern parts. We're salting the roads, we're doing all that kind of stuff. So people are safe and we're very good at removing it, but it's something you want to be aware of, okay? And that's where I want you to comment below. I want to know, are you into snow? Are you not? Because, you know, at the end of the day, snow can be a hindrance, but it's still fun. Build snowmen. Maybe you like to ski, maybe you like to do that stuff. We got ski resorts in New Jersey. We like going to Mountain Creek up in Vernon. So maybe snow is a good thing for you that you're not going to see in other states. So I like to hear that comment. Okay, it's all condos. Now look, this is so crucial because at the end of the day, if you want new construction, okay, new homes, bam, you know, you're going to have a very difficult time finding a house, you know, a little house here. We don't build them. Woo. So most of the time it is this here, the condo that is being built. We're a very densely populated state. We don't really have a lot of room to expand. So what do people do to be close proximity to things like New York City and infrastructure and, you know, the Fortune 500 companies that are located in New Jersey and everything pharmaceutical? They build condos in close proximity to them. They build condos in close proximity to the train stations so people have easy access to the city. But you don't see many single family homes built. So if you're looking to move to the area and you know you must have new construction, it's probably going to be condo, townhouse, that type of thing. It's going to be very rare unless you go far, far west, you know, places like Mount Olive and further, where you're going to find new construction single family. So just something to be prepared for if you need new construction. If not, you know, I've got multiple properties that my wife and I personally own. We've been investing now for over a decade, so we're very familiar. We own different properties, and we have some that are earlier than the 1900s. We're used to it, okay? So you see a lot of homes that were built from, let's say, 1900 to 1950 in some of these older communities. By all means, you find ways to make it work. That's why you do home inspections, do all that kind of stuff in our state to make sure you're protected. So don't want to scare you by owning an old house. There's really not much different. You know, things are gonna come up, but some people get caught up on like, I must have new construction. It could be a tough state for you if you need that single family, all right? Moving along here. Lake life. Oh man, I hope people don't hate me for this one. Like I said, I want to be real. You know, I love lakes. I actually grew up on a lake in Rock Ridge in Denville, which is a great place. But all the lakes here are very, very small. I also grew up a little bit in New England. I'd go there for vacation in the summertime, and the lakes were massive. You go to a lake they called a pond, and it was twice the size of, you know, anything by us, and they call that a pond. So for me, when I see the lakes in New Jersey, they're small. A place like Lake Hopatcong, it gets very congested. They have boat regulations. You can't go to the fullest speed because it's so packed and it's not a large lake. So finding that huge open lake where you're free to fly and hop on the jet skis and do some water skiing might not be so easy. Now look, if you're into fishing and all that kind of stuff, you know, these lakes are great. You're gonna get some really awesome fish, and we love fishing, going out, having a good time. But I always just wanna say, if you're into more like the water sport side of things, you might want to go elsewhere. But with that being said, we're not too far from places like Lake Wallenpaupack, which is in Pennsylvania, Greenwood Lake, which is half New Jersey, half New York. So there are pluses to it, but from a local perspective, the lakes can be a little small, all right? Let's keep on moving, and then we're gonna be going, talking a little bit more related to the lakes on this one here, so stick around for sure. But old towns, okay. You know, we are one of the 13 original colonies in New Jersey, so we are old. We have the Revolutionary War, everything coming through here from George Washington to everyone else, you know. So New Jersey has been around for a while, and so have a lot of the towns. So, you know, you're gonna be looking at things like the utilities here. You want to check to see what type of utility service. You know, the town I live in right now, very, very few people have things like natural gas, and most of us don't have a sewer. So if you need to have a sewer line because you don't want to have a septic, the further west you go, you're going to be running into these situations. A lot of the towns closer eastern to the city tend to have sewer lines, and most towns are putting in things like natural gas. but it's just older. So you have different layouts, different things, you know, so you might not always get it. Okay, so when you're looking at the utilities, just be aware that, you know, these are 100-plus-year-old towns, and they're not always going to have it. Not every part of town has natural gas. If it's new construction, there's a really good chance you're going to have it. But like I said earlier, we don't have crazy new construction going on like you'll see maybe other states. Let's see. Actually, I'll come back to this one because this one's important, the lakes. Layout. So the layout of the towns, they were built for 1900s thinking, where everyone had to walk into town, you know, go to the baker, go to the barber, go to people that are all in the center of town. So you see very compact areas around the downtowns in northern New Jersey. And then as you branch off, you know, as we expanded, when cars are being more around, things got a little bit wider and more opened up. But a lot of these towns were built at a time where maybe cars weren't really the #1 way of transportation yet. So narrow roadways, you know, on top of each other, close to town. So if you want a little bit more separation, you tend to need to go to the outskirts of town or further west to maybe newer developed towns where they don't have as much going on. But we tend to be on top of each other in many ways, especially when you get closer to New York City. Regarding the roadways, this is so crucial, especially if you live in the lake life, and I grew up in it, so I'm not dissing on it, but I want you to know so you can make that decision. The roadways are very, very narrow, especially around the lakes. I mean, I kid you not, it's not two-way traffic. It's you pull into someone's driveway, the next car goes by, you go. You don't go over 25 miles per hour unless you want to be that like jerk that wants to, you know, endanger lives. So you go slow in these communities. You're not, you know, putting a lead foot or anything like that. Save the lead foot for the road rage on the highways. That's where the parkway or whatever. That's where we get the New Jersey reputation from. But these little towns, you know, a lot of them have very, very narrow roads. So you just want to be aware of it. Once again, once you go to some of those newer modern developments, you'll see things. But when I say modern, I mean like, you know, like the 80s or 90s. You're not seeing these crazy developments in 2020 and further. You know, they're maybe early 2000s. We have these wide streets. But if you're going through, you know, for example, my parents, it's like if there's two cars coming, one's got to stop, the other goes. Everyone slows down. So narrow roadways is something you just gotta watch out for. Restaurants, oh man, this one like kills me because we have a lot of go-to places. And look, if you want to know some of these go-to places, from Italian to everything else in between, obviously we're New Jersey, so we got the pizzas shops, the bagel shops, we're huge for that. But Mondays are rough because we have our go-to places. We just kind of finished the weekend, we're rebounding, we want to go to one of our, you know, top places, but they tend to be closed. You see a lot of that where restaurants are closed. Now look, it's not across the board. Obviously all your chains and everything like that are gonna be open, but if you have a go-to place, there's a really good shot that it might be closed on a Monday. So just something to consider when you're moving to New Jersey suburbs. And you know, I want you to comment below, please, if you want a suggestion on a restaurant, a place to try. Just comment the cuisine or whatever it is. I love eating food. My wife and I are foodies. We love going to these places. So if you ever have a question on that, I want to get that comment below. Please let me know. Let's keep going here. Access to major highways. Okay, so look, we've got some awesome highways and everything that go into New York City. We got Route 80, we got Route 78, we got 287 that goes around New York City. But going back to some of these older towns, you know, a lot of these were built and you know, many years ago where they couldn't put the highway through there. So how do you get to these highways? You can actually kind of be stuck in the little middle of nowhere in a very populated place, and it might take 15 or 20 minutes to get to a major highway. Whereas there's other spots where you can just hop right on. So access to highways is not always easy. There's parts of Bergen County where you're like, Bergen County is right next to New York City, but you're still far away. So it's like you might be geographically closer to the city, but if it takes you 20 minutes to get to the highway, that's not necessarily closer unless you're planning on walking, but you're probably not. So, you know, places maybe like Morris County where you're a little further west, you actually might be closer for getting east, if that makes sense. So access to major highways, because we're old, once again, they're not just gonna take down a town and say, we're gonna put a highway here, not happening. So getting to them can be tough in some occasions. Let's see here. Oh my gosh. Oh, gee, this one is just mind blowing. I don't know why we do these things. We have this plastic ban, whatever. You want to be eco-friendly, nothing wrong with that. Not saying no to that, but this is what I say no to. You're banning plastic straws. I'm looking around for my Dunkin' cup because I absolutely love Dunkin' Donuts. The reason for that is because New Jersey said you can't have straws. How do you spell straws? Straws, is that right? Or is it like the straws? So anyways, Dunkin' did not freaking listen at all. They gave plastic straws and it was awesome. So I love them for that. And I think they have a really, really, really good cold brew, not iced coffee, cold brew. Comment below if you think I'm crazy, but I think it's way better than Starbucks. And Starbucks is all right. And for the price and what they do a really nice job. So I'd go and I'd get my Dunkin' large cold brew iced coffee black, and they gave me the big plastic straw and I loved it. But you go into pretty much anywhere else in New Jersey, they either took away the straw or they give you this paper straw. And the paper straw, you'd have to get like 3 of them because they'd start disintegrating while you're drinking. And the craziest part of it is the cup. The cup it would come in was plastic. It was a plastic cup that we have, but they banned the plastic straw. I don't know. Call me crazy. Maybe someone can explain it. I've heard it as it's something to do with turtles. It saves turtles. And I'm like, I go to Florida, they've got sea turtles all the time down there. They didn't ban the straws, but supposedly New Jersey's saving sea turtles. Am I crazy? I don't know. Maybe I'm just going on a rant on something here, but we can be a little wacky in this state, so I gotta say these things. And then they had the plastic bag ban too. Yeah, that's right. You go to the grocery stores, you better bring bags with you and figure it out. Thank goodness I shop at Costco, so they never really had bags. They come in bulk and we get it delivered to our house, which is super, super convenient, because I'm gonna be talking about pros and cons of New Jersey as well. So I'm gonna be tossing a lot more pros on in the next video that are gonna say why New Jersey is really good. And I have a feeling one of those things is gonna be close proximity, getting food delivered to you, getting your groceries delivered, getting them same day delivery. We get all that happening. So really good reason for moving in. Bonus here, high cost of living. All right, I think I'm at like 11 right now. Tell me if I am, tell me if I'm not. High cost of living. The reason I wanted to save this one for last is because look, we all kind of know about it. Is New Jersey. We have very, very, very high taxes. The pay is awesome to our state, but you get high taxes. They charge you, income tax, all that kind of stuff, but it's really the property taxes that all go. A lot of that just has to do with, once again, the older towns. Things deteriorate a little bit more. So how do you pay for it? Yeah, you have to get taxed on it. So we have a high cost of living in our state. Tolls are not cheap. Tolls pay for the road rage. No, tolls pay for the roads. The roads are constantly being worked on, so tolls are expensive. Gas, we used to be really cheap, but then they added a gas tax. So we're kind of with the national average right now. We used to be very low. So things like that, insurance, a little bit more expensive here, a lot more people, a lot more cars driving around. So, you're gonna have higher insurance. So there is a high cost of living. To make sure you stay up to date with everything that's happening in northern New Jersey, New Jersey suburbs, make sure you click subscribe. I'm gonna see you on the next video, and I'm super excited because it might be that pros and cons video that I was talking about earlier. See you on the next one.